Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Fishing can be challenging, especially if you use fishing hooks. You have to put the bait on the hook, and bait for freshwater fishing can be worms or millet worms or cricket, or small fish, or even chicken livers. For deep sea fishing, you can use, among other things, squid. And immediately you have that all on your hands. Then if you happen to catch something, you have to get it off the hook. And this calls for knowing how to grip the slimy and fighting fish. Then when it's all over and you're old enough, you get to clean the fish. As a boy, I recall going to a fish market around here, in Fairfield, I believe. My mother would pick out a fish, and the man would scrape off the fish scales before wrapping it up in paper to hand to us. And I was familiar with that technique, as well as cutting the fish. As a boy, the frustrating part about fishing was you had to remember to be quiet and not to scare away the fish. And you could not get into the water, which of course was what I wanted to do. It helps to have a big brother to pull you out of the water when you accidentally get too close and fall in the water, only to find your legs with leeches on them. It didn't hurt, yet there was something about fishing which draws people in. Some people fish for sport, some people fish for a living. In the Old Testament reading for today in Jonah 3, 1 through 5 and 10, he does not go fishing, but God calls him for a second time to go preach in Nineveh. Nineveh is in Mesopotamia, near the Tigris River in modern-day Iraq. Remember, the first time God calls him, Jonah runs away to try to escape God, to no avail. He gets on a boat to hide, but God knows where he is and shakes the boat with a great wind, which terrifies everyone on board. So they start praying to their God, only to find Jonah sleeping. They get him to pray to God, and he ends up converting all of them. But eventually they have to throw him overboard at his request to get the wind to calm down. Here is the fish part. A whale swallows Jonah. Talk about the power of prayer. Jonah then prays. God hears him, and the whale spits him out. Yuck. So, back full circle, God calls Jonah a second time to go to Nineveh, to preach and warn them that the city would face calamity. So this time, Jonah goes out and cries, 40 days more, and Nineveh will be overthrown. The people there heed his words, and they put on ashes and sackcloths. They believed God and proclaimed a fast. And it worked. God changed his mind about them when he saw they had turned from their evil ways. And Jonah, with God's help, was successful in converting people on the ship and the people of the great city of Nineveh. Jonah did not catch a fish, but was himself caught by one. However, he gets away from the fish with God's help. In a way, Jonah becomes a fisher of people. He converted the people on the boat and inspired the people of Nineveh to turn to God. In the gospel reading for today in Mark chapter 1, beginning at the 14th verse, Jesus calls his disciples. Events occur very rapidly in Mark, and Jesus was baptized by John. Jesus goes to be tempted in the desert, and John gets arrested. and Jesus goes to Galilee. He sees Simon and his brother Andrew. They fish with nets rather than exclusively with hooks. They can cast a wide net and bring in large amounts of fish if they are successful. Jesus calls to them, "Follow him." And unlike Jonah, they leave what they are doing and follow him. Further along, Jesus sees James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They are also fishermen. They mend their nets so not to lose any fish. Jesus calls. They too follow him. He will make them fishers of people. And they too follow Jesus and will eventually bring others with them. Like Jonah, are you running away from God? It's futile. God can still use you for his purposes. And so often we run after things that in the final scheme of things do not matter. Isn't it wonderful we have a God who will give us second chances? In the story, God calls Jonah a second time to do his bidding. And Jesus calls his followers where they are. They are making a living, and Jesus uses the skills they have for his purpose, for them to follow him and learn more from him. Jesus proclaims the good news of God, that is the gospel, and he preaches repentance, a turning toward God. Is this easy? No. So often we want to do our own thing. We want to do what we want to do. And it is hard putting God first by acknowledging him in all our ways. And often it's when things are not going so well that we remember God. And this brings us closer to God. Fishing holds a special place in my heart. It's often peaceful and cathartic, but also exciting at times when you catch something. God uses us for his purposes, to be fishers of people by proclaiming the good news, which is Christ came into the world to save sinners. And to this we say, thanks be to God.